Good morning. Let us discuss this 25th June 2015 newspaper and certain important issues related to that. The first one is World Investment Report 2015 given by UNCTAD, Trade and Development Agency of United Nations. Now, India has improved 6 positions and it has come to the 9th position with total FDI inflow with around $34 billion. On the other hand, India moved out of the top 20 countries with regard to the outflow of the FDI. So the outflows have decreased, inflows of the FDIs have increased. So the favorable growth atmosphere is one reason for improvement of the inflows and which has made India for the first time in the top 10 countries. So on the other hand, there are certain worrying points also for India, that is from China. China is the first, highest inflows of FDIs with $129 billion, followed by Hong Kong, which is also a part of China. Now, the second thing is, traditionally India has a edge over China on the service sector. For the first time, FDI inflows to China in the service sector has dominated the manufacturing sector. And the next is the global environment of with regard to the China, there is another more issue. The China's outflow of the FDI, if observed, they are mostly flown into the neighborhood of India, that is into Pakistan and Sri Lanka. It means through economic relationships, China wants to tighten its hold in South Asia. That is clearly visible. On the other hand, if you take Russia, the total inflows have decreased in Russia. And the global scenario is also not very favorable for the FDI flows. The total global FDI decreased by 16%. It means that there is an unfavorable atmosphere towards the trade. It is majorly due to fragility of the global economy and uncertainty and geopolitical risks, especially in the West Asia, which have been prevailing in the world as of now. So, in overall, there is a positive improvement towards India. But there is one more topic which it talked about is tax evasion. The developing countries lost more than $100 billion as the tax evasion, as most of the investments were routed through the tax havens. For example, Mauritius, most of the investments which are coming from abroad, they are being routed through Mauritius, which are called as tax havens. So the total amount of the money lost is around $100 billion. So, terminology, what are tax havens, what is double taxation avoidance agreement, tax information exchange agreement, and all these things, try to see this. And next is nuclear deadline. It is June 30th is the deadline. So under this there are still certain issues are pending. One is Iran is demanding for lifting of all the sanctions, that is sanctions of UN Security Council, US Congress and also the US government at a single go. Now, US P5+1, they are proposing for a sequential lifting of the progressive lifting of sanctions or linear lifting. On the other hand, the IAEA complaining that Iran is not allowing for a full-time inspection of all the nuclear facilities, and it is not handing over the equipment, documents and people relevant to that particular probe. And next is, if in case Iran do not follow the commitments which it has given, how the sanctions have to be reimposed. Again, the China and Russia has a conflict over here. They don't want to have a knee-jerk reflective imposition of the sanctions once it has been done. And next is R&D on nuclear technology. How much of the R&D or how much of the nuclear enrichment has to be allowed for R&D, that is research and development. So Mr. Ayatollah Khamenei, who is the supreme leader of Iran, what he has said is Iran is not going to compromise on military strength and it will not compromise on the R&D which it has built over a period of time. So this is what is the thing. And next is All India Muslim Personal Law Board. It has opposed the yoga, Surya Namaskars and all these recitation of the Bhagavad Gita. They are not acceptable to the Muslims and they are not in accordance with the practices of secularism. Now, imposition of practice of yoga in schools, they criticized it as the violation of the Article 28 which says that no religious practices shall be allowed in the education, especially government and state recognized schools. Now, further going to this Article 28, the Madhya Pradesh government during its first term, the Shivraj Chauhan's government, it tried to introduce Saraswati Puja as part of the morning prayer, which Supreme Court has declared that it is not in accordance with the Article 28 of the Constitution. So obviously the yoga will not also stand to this. And next is the democracy. What this article says is the mastering of the drill of democracy. Authoritarianism, wherever it is, it has a similar characteristics. Now, what are the authoritarian leaders? They have in common a single-minded purpose, little respect and patience for so-called dissent, and they have megalomania with certain paranoia. These are the characteristics of every person who appears to be authoritarian. Now, Indira Gandhi and Tsar Nicholas I of Russia, these are the typical examples to it according to the article. Now, the first thing is, so emergency in India, it has created a police state with strengthening of the military and paramilitary forces and curtailing of the rights of the citizens. So during that time, the Supreme Court also did not stand to the protection of the rights of the people. So in this, the spying, media censorship, everything, tapping of the telephones, everything was rampantly prevalent over there. So next is, if you observe the authoritarian personalities, one thing is the Indira Gandhi has created a power machine. The government more than a welfare machine, it was transformed itself into a power machine. For example, so all the opposition leaders, they are being taken into custody and were tortured in the police cells. And next is the Hindutva and the divisive politics which it is playing now today in the name of the yoga or other religious issues. It also remains to an extent about the growing authoritarianism in the country. So now what it can be emphasized is any tendency of an authoritarianism of the leader finally led to the reverberation or strengthening of the called as liberalism. It means the India also stood to its emergency, and the spine of its democracy has still straight, and it also realized the importance of jealously safeguarding the freedom of expression of the people. So we realized the importance of our rights more than ever before because of this emergency. And next is the Rajya Sabha TV. Recently during Yoga Day, RSS and BJP mouthpieces, they have criticized the Rajya Sabha TV for not giving due emphasis to the Yoga Day exercises on the Rajpath. Now if you observe, the Rajya Sabha TV, it is not under the executive control as like the Prasar Bharati. The Rajya Sabha TV is managed by the Secretariat of Rajya Sabha, which is under the control of the Chairman of Rajya Sabha, that is the Vice President of India. So in this context, the separation of the powers clearly states that the executive, as per the separation of the powers, the legislature has its own space of operations, and Rajya Sabha TV, which is clearly involving with the development of legal literacy and a constructive debate on the policies and activities of the government. It is the money invested on this is well spent. So that is, it means the Rajya Sabha need not heed to the government and its activities. And the China-led infrastructure bank, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, the Australia, another ally of United States, also entered into the agreement. Now Australia, it wants to invest around 930 million Australian dollars into this initiative. Now Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank with a paid-up capital of $20 billion. India is the second largest investor. Now it makes the Australia to the sixth largest investor in the AIIB. Now the total authorized capital is around $100 billion. And now, if you can see, it can improve the connectivity and finance the infrastructure in Asia. So the Asian infrastructure requirement is around $8 trillion. So in this context, the trade and wealth can be boosted in this part of the society if this bank takes up, comes into existence. On the other side, if you see this, the Japan and United States, they were squarely opposed to this particular bank, and the reason being more political than economical. And also, the coming up of this bank has to be seen as China's challenge towards the financial hegemony of the United States, especially the banking sector. And in India, the defense procurement, it is majorly getting delayed because of the over-ambitious qualitative requirements which has been prescribed by the General Services Headquarters of the General Service Headquarters on qualitative requirements of this defense. So in this context, what it has been said is, whatever the standards prescribed, they are nowhere been supplied across the military equipment. It means that this over-ambitious selection is ultimately leading to the inability to supply the necessary requirements to the army in time, and it is killing our defense capabilities. The next is, recently there was an article by Mr. Amitabh. So what this article says is, there has to be specialization, the specialization in the case of Indian Foreign Service. So the generalist foreign corps who are there, their size has to be increased as per the needs of growing demands of the Indian diplomacy. And the third, what he said is, the lateral entry has to be encouraged into the foreign services, and the think tank, especially the foreign policy planning division, it has to be manned with the specialists. That is what is the argument which was given by the Amitabh Mattu. As a counter to this, the seasoned bureaucrat, Mr. Srinivasan, what he says is this. So the entry of all the other people or outsiders into the foreign services is going to kill its elitism and also the niche which is necessary for its functioning. So increasing in them, it leads to killing of the diversity and over bureaucratization of the fresh mind which is available outside. So it is better function if they are from outside and independent and give fresh inputs as and when required. And the second thing is, the policy planning division and its role with regard to the public services is overemphasized. In foreign services everywhere across the world, the planning is being done mostly by the respective territorial divisions which are occupied by the field agencies. Any think tank and its support generally comes from outside. So the role of policy and planning was overemphasized. And the next is, the reforms whatever are necessary are improving the training and manning the headquarters with the right people, and also providing for the more technical inputs with regard to the changing dynamics related to climate change, etc. Now already there is a lateral entry which is existing in the corps. So what is this lateral entry is? With regard to the technical functions, for example, climate change, nuclear deals, or defense, or space related matters, the concerned departments are dealing, and the foreign services are our missions abroad just facilitating these particular negotiations. It means already the people who are specialized in their respective departments, they are coming into the foreign services. Their services are being used for the diplomacy. And improving the foreign services and its corps. Now the person's intention to enter into the foreign service has to be observed first, because a person who did not get into IAS shall not automatically get into IFS. So it means that IFS is more becoming a secondary choice for a student or for an entrant who was not very much interested into or who was unable to get into the IAS. These have to be done away with. And next is, with regard to the recent mediation of Madras High Court on a rape case, in which Madras High Court has referred this particular rape of a minor to a mediation. So now, the mediation is generally allowed for the civil crimes, but the criminal crimes, the state has a responsibility and the prosecution of the state has to fight against this, as criminal cases are generally seen as a crime against the society. So in this context, the rape as a crime shall not be just seen as a crime of lust, but it's a crime of power. It means the gender-based power is being exhibited through rape. So the mediation or reconciliation between the victim and accused in these circumstances, in a paternalistic society like us, it is going to lead to a compromise which is unfavorable to the victim. So in this context, the state and judiciary has to stand to the protection of the victims of the rape. And next is the corridors, this dedicated freight corridors of India. Now with regard to this, there are two corridors, Eastern Corridor and Western Corridor. The Eastern Corridor from Ludhiana to Damkuni in West Bengal. The Western Corridor, it is from Jawaharlal Nehru Port in Mumbai, Navasheva Port in Mumbai, to the all way Dadri in Uttar Pradesh. So these are going to improve the speed, efficiency of the transport industry in the country, and it also provides for decreased cost of the transports by 40%. So in this context, the Japan International Bank and World Bank are financing this project. The most important thing here is the cost overruns of the project. So because of improper planning or delays in the project is a major concern. And finally, the center may make the solar system mandatory on the rooftops. Already Tamil Nadu has made this solar system mandatory on the rooftops, especially for the commercial establishments, where it has said at least 10% of the consumption of the commercial establishments, it has to flow from the renewable sources. But however, the court has objected to this. Now, to what extent it will be implemented, it is in doubt. So the solar capacity addition, the government kept the target of 100 gigawatt by 2022. Let us see to what extent it can be achieved. Thank you.